2017 G1 with Nagara, I still am one of the biggest heels in Japan. So going up against my mentor on the last day of the G1 and against him for his last show, and I felt I had nothing planned after our match. Of course, I was up. I stood up and the crowd was just going crazy. I could feel the goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now just putting myself back in there.
Welcome once again to the SHOOTHOUSE Podcast. My name is Vincent Vitalino, or Roxas Mason, as you know me. We had an amazing episode of the podcast. We just interviewed Luck Fale. As you can see, I'm very flustered. He's a pro wrestler from New Japan Pro Wrestling. He's also one of the very first foreigners that's gone through the New Japan Dojo system and has come out as one of the amazing top guys out there in New Japan Pro Wrestling, as well as one of the founding members of Bullet Club. He's now here in Auckland to establish his own dojo, Fale's Dojo. So it's an important event for him to get that interview out there. So not only for himself, but for us wrestling fans to know about him more. So if you're watching this, I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, man. Sweet. Speaking of rolling, you walked into the same time as we saw each other. So because I was going to welcome you. I was
ready for a coffee.
brother, if I had that, I would have had like the 10-piece choir, the mariachi band as well, man. Yeah. I would have had the welcome mat and all that. I'm going to mention this. I'm quite nervous about this interview. I'm nervous for many reasons. I'm putting my wrestling fan hat off and putting my professional hat on. So you were born here in Auckland, is that correct?
No, I was born in Tonga.
Okay.
But I moved here when I was 6. And when I was 6, I was already speaking a little bit of English, but it was difficult. So, yeah.
So how was it like growing up at that age and around Auckland with limited amount of English?
It was tough because I went to the first primary school I went to was Te Papa in Oneanga, and the little bit of English I knew wasn't enough to carry a conversation. But because I think it was because I struggled over there, we moved to St. Joe's Oneanga, and they had a program there for teaching English, and I picked it up in maybe a year or two. But it was difficult. It's hard when you go to another country and not being able to communicate, because I went through the same thing when I went to Japan also.
Okay. With that said, what got you through school? Just what sort of drove you to pass through school? Because it would have been difficult. Like you're in a foreign land, you don't know where you are, and it must be difficult making friends and whatnot. So what got you through? Was it sports or was it other things, other means?
Yeah, I remember it was just finding those who I could relate with. I remember my first friends were Tongan, so because I could speak Tongan to them, it was easier to communicate with them. And then I'd sit next to them, and then I'd copy the stuff they were doing. So coming up with sentences like "I went to the shop," and I remember copying that from a friend and just hearing him saying "I went to the shop," and then just rewriting that over and over and over until I remembered it and just carried on from that. But also at St. Joe's Oneanga, there was the program they had a teacher who didn't speak Tongan, but she had the patience to really teach us how to learn these words. And I remember it wasn't just me, it was the other nationalities there. There were Samoan kids and some Indians and Chinese there too. So she really knew how to communicate with us in a way where we could learn and understand and slowly put sentences together. So
Sweet, man. So school goes by. What got you into rugby? Because I know when I watch your interviews with even from staff and whatnot, you mentioned rugby being a big thing, a big driver for you to go to Japan. So we're in DLSL. What got you into rugby?
of course, when I first came to New Zealand, of course, the biggest name in the All Blacks for Islanders was Inga Tungamala.
Yeah.
And everywhere we would turn during play, or lunchtime when kids would play rugby, all you could hear would be Inga Tungamala, running through. And they got me interested in it at first, watching somebody who's an Islander that I could look up to. And then I think on my first year or the second year, John Kerwin came by to St. Joe's and hang out to visit. And St. Joe's is where he went to. And when I realized he's like one of the biggest names in the All Blacks, and you had Inga Tungamala and then John Kerwin on the other side. Right? There was it, yeah. But to find out he went to the same school, and then I found out he went to De La Salle. I saw my path straight away, and I was playing wing at the same time. I was skinny then, and when I all my siblings went to other schools, but I just kept telling my parents I want to go to De La Salle because that's where John Kerwin went, and when I went there. Quickly, you know how Islander boys are. Quickly, I turned into a prop, and all my speed was gone. So I found my position to mostly be at lock or number 6.
You gotta believe those big boys can bring that shoulder power in. Dang.
Yeah, I couldn't be like Inga because Inga was fast.
Yeah,
I had the size, but I wasn't fast anymore.
But I mean, you must have had fun though when you were playing your new positions out in DLSL. I wasn't the fastest boy, but I could literally go, and then
it's good to have the weight.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just see the small little boy just come through and you
bump on.
And then you speak in Samoan, forgetting that you have to speak English or Filippo. In other words. So what got you? So transitioning from DLSL, what got you into Japan with rugby? There must have been a process to get you through to that.
Yes. I was actually. It came down to 2 decisions I made. On my last year at the high school, I failed my bursary. So bursary is what you needed to get into university.
Yeah.
Back then. What is that now?
NCA.
Yes. So I failed on my first year, and I decided to go back for another year. But that was the best decision I made. I decided to go back another year to get my bursary because I wanted to go to university. And there was that chance there. A coach from Japan was looking for players and came in, saw some of the games, and then my coach was like, take this guy. And that's how I ended up in Japan. I did have other chances to play here in New Zealand, but because I wanted to go to university and my parents couldn't afford to send me to uni here, I saw a chance to go to school for free and play rugby professionally in Japan. So that's how I got there.
So it was kind of like a scholarship, right, for you to go out to Japan?
Yeah.
So you mentioned it earlier. It was quite difficult to speak in Japan because you didn't know the language. So it's like all over again back into primary.
Yes.
So with that setting change once more, how did you feel then? Was it difficult to speak to your teammates, to the coaching staff and whatnot?
Yes. So it was really similar to when I was first in New Zealand. However, in Japan they had. I had English-speaking teammates also, and they helped me out. But it made it more difficult to pick up the Japanese because I was talking constantly in English. But it was hard. It was very hard. But learning from my first experience, I kept at it, And there were 4 of us that went over, with our coach being from New Zealand as well. What happened was the first 2 years I didn't learn much because I was communicating in English all the time. And then when the other 3 guys left, they gave up and left because of the same frustrations. The coach ended up leaving too, so I was stuck there by myself. And I had 2 more years of uni, and I had nobody speaking English to, so I was forced to pick it up real quick, or else I'd be.
Yeah, you sort of just looking around, going, right,
yeah. Which was great. That was great. That really forced me to listen, remember, and talk back, regurgitate back what they would say to me, and I picked it up faster from listening than trying to study it.
Yeah, makes sense. Because by nature, this is what I think. By nature, if you hear something enough, you sort of pick up the behavior, and you pick up everything that's said to you. And you go, oh yeah, you said this.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. So you're in Japan. You're playing rugby. For how long were you playing rugby out in Japan for?
All up, 8 years. 8 years, yeah. Yeah, 4 years at uni, and then 2.5 years, 2 or 3 years. No, 5 years at uni. 5 years.
How's it now? So did you moved up to semi-professional in Japan? Is that
no? So playing for the university, that was semi.
Okay.
Because we were being paid to play, and then when I went full pro, that was after uni.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what was the team that you played with?
I played for Senex Blues. That was in Fukuoka, Japan, and that was for the top league. Yes.
Was the culture different from New Zealand's rugby to Japan in terms of how they interact with fans and whatnot?
Oh, it's very different. Ultimately, that's why some of the other boys that I was with, that was the reason they left, because bringing their mentality of New Zealand rugby to Japan was really difficult because everybody else didn't know how to play that way. So it's either. And I was given this, I saw this advice by one of the big sumo wrestlers at the time. His name was Musashi Maru. He's half Tongan, half Samoan from Hawaii. Massive, major in Japan. And I watched one of his interviews, and he said something that stuck with me. He said, when you come to Japan, you have to immerse yourself in the culture. You can't come there and change what's been done for thousands of years. And that's why a lot of rugby players, a lot of foreigners come there and don't survive, because they come there and try to change everything around them instead of coming there and doing what everybody else is doing.
Hey.
Yeah, like, the saying, when you're in Rome, do what the Romans do. And he was right. When I heard that advice, I clicked and I listened more. I copied more of what they did. The respect stuff, the way they talk. There's a way of talking respectfully. I copied all that stuff, and quickly the relationships and networking started to build, and that's all because of that.
Yeah. So fast forward 8 years. What made you decide rugby might be the thing that I keep going with, or what do I do next from here? What made you have that clicking moment in your mind that you might want to do something else?
It was a factor of things. One of them was I was too much of a fan.
Yeah.
Like, I was playing rugby, but I was playing as a fan instead of being a rugby player and making it pro. And at the time, my biggest hero or guy I looked up to was Istolamaka. If you've heard of him, ex-All Black. Yeah. And he was Tongan too, and he was one of the big Tongan names out there that Tongan kids could look up to and follow. And when I made that Fukuoka Blues team, they announced, Istolamaka's coming into this team too. So instead of me focusing on trying to be a better player and stuff, I became just more focused on, I'm going to play with my hero, and I'm too nervous. Every time I'm around her, I'm nervous. And and that was one factor, instead of just, just do your job, just play. The second one was, I think the economy was really bad at the time. And I finished from that team, and I was looking for another team, and they weren't picking. No teams were hiring at the time. So, which is it sounds like an excuse, but I'm thinking, what do I do if I don't find a team? And I wanted to stay in Japan, and then a friend of mine said, you should try pro wrestling. And I had never thought about it before. I knew about WWE, but I never heard about New Japan Pro Wrestling. And I knew there was pro wrestling, but I was never into it. And when he suggested you should try out, I thought to myself, I want to stay in Japan. How else do I stay in Japan?
Yeah.
So I went and tried out.
No, fair enough. Fair enough. I was just thinking back to what you were saying. If a team had to pick you, I was just imagining a brother from the islands, like a Samoan or a Cook Islander or a Tongan, going through that motion. There are heaps of teams in New Zealand, but they might not pick him because they might not fit the team mold.
It's true. It's hard. It's difficult, especially if you don't have an agent over there, because a lot of the guys who come from over here have agents who does all that work for them. Yeah. They'll go out and find you teams and stuff. Whereas a lot of the boys who go straight to school there, they don't have agents because they don't have big names, so they have to try and find it on their own or negotiate for themselves.
Absolutely. It goes down to who you know and who you don't, and what sort of talent do you hold.
Yes.
Now, going towards what you just said earlier about, all right, let's try wrestling. How did that feel when you went into that? Gee, must have been rough.
Oh, it was difficult because in my head I kept thinking, I don't think I look good in spandex. That's the biggest thing I thought. I was like, I don't think anybody would want to see me in those tights. But I went anyway because I wanted to stay in Japan. And I thought, you know what? Survive, man. You've come this far. Why just give up and leave?
Yeah.
Just at least if you go and try out, you could say you tried it.
So, how did you get into trying out for New Japan, or was there another promotion you went through before hitting the big one in New Japan?
There were two at the time. So my friend told me there's a tryout this month at the state. Come and join me. And he was a sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
And he just finished from sumo too. So he was looking at trying pro wrestling too. So he said to me, let's go try out together. And I said, okay, cool. And then another friend of mine said, there's a friend of mine who comes to my hairdressers, and he's a wrestler. And I asked him, what's his name? He said, his name's Seema. And he's from Dragon Gate.
Yeah.
So he gave me his email. I sent him an email, and then went and tried out for New Japan. So it was one of those. The thing was, I went and tried out. I had no idea what New Japan was. Finished the tryout, and then I heard back from Seema asking for my stats and stuff. But luckily, New Japan got back to me a couple of days after the tryout and said, you made it. So I just left that Dragon Gate stuff alone. But I don't know, it was a fate. It was fate. I had no idea which was which, or who was better, or who was bigger. So
I'm just imagining right now you being a part of Strong Hearts. Just a big fella in Strong Hearts.
Yeah.
That would have been great. But so so New Japan's giving you the big thumbs up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your time in the dojo, in New Japan's dojo. How was it like? I know you've given a little bit about the culture, about being organized and tidy.
Yeah, it was one of the toughest periods of my life. I had dreadlocks before I went there, and you see here I got no more hair because, and that's because of the hard training and mental tough trainings I had to go through there. After I completed the training, my hair didn't grow back, and I attribute it to that. But it's very difficult, very, very difficult. I got in and I straight away understood, I failed in rugby. You can't come in here and just do the same shit you did in rugby because if you don't learn from that, you're going to do the same thing. So I went in with a different mindset. I went in the first day leaving my big rugby eagle outside and doing everything the Japanese guys did. And that meant cleaning, doing everybody's laundries, cooking for everyone. Everything they did, I made sure I did it myself because I wanted to, like Musashi Maru said, immerse myself in the culture. And when I did that, it just transformed everything. And that's how I became the first foreigner to complete the Japanese training.
Can we briefly talk about your teacher, your sensei, Yuji Nagata, Blue Justice?
Yeah.
How much of an influence to you that meant a lot to you? Because there's a I think it was G1. Please correct me or not, but you had a match with Yuji, and the most beautiful scene, if you ever get to watch this, is that the sign of respect is the bow in the middle of the ring, and then
2017. G1. That was Nagata's last match for G1. I don't think he'll ever be back on it. But when I first started, the beauty about New Japan is you don't have one coach. Your coach is whoever turns up on that day. Yeah. And all the older boys, they turn up every single day at different times. So whoever comes at the time that the young lions are training, that's your coach for the day. So we learned from everyone. Imagine having all those top guys in WWE turn up to training every day. Yeah. Imagine if you had Undertaker today, you had John Cena tomorrow. Yeah. You had The Rock the next day. Imagine having that. Your level of wrestling will go from 0 to 100 in 2 hours. Yeah. And that's how they teach in New Japan. Every single day in, day out. If you're not on tour, you're the coach that day. And that's how I trained. And the ones that stood out were Shinsuke Nakamura, who really helped me, not just in the ring, but a lot of advice on how to relate to other wrestlers. Of course, Yuji Nagata. We had Jaro and Gero. They were big. But yeah, when they give you a chance to be in a faction, that's when that faction leader or boss or whatever takes you under their wing, and then they show you the right way to go. If you're going to be here, if you're going to be a good guy, this is how we do it. And then away you go. Yeah. And so when after that happened, I did go to America and train there for a year with Tony Kozina for a whole year. And he taught me a lot, came back to Japan. And then, of course, we started this faction called the Bullet Club. And I took some of what Tony taught me and used it and became successful with my character and whatever and what sort. But going back to that 2017 G1 with Nagata, I still am one of the biggest heels in Japan. So going up against my mentor on the last day of the G1 and against him for his last show, and I felt I had nothing planned after our match. Of course, I was up. I stood up and the crowd was just going crazy. I could feel the goosebumps. I got goosebumps right now just putting myself back in there. And people was just, they knew that was the last time they'll see Nagata, who's been in G1 for years and winning it multiple times. And, instead of leaving, I thought, I want to show him, I'm grateful for his help all these years. And he, he got up and I thought, I'm going to throw up the too sweet. If he gives me a too sweet, people are still going to know, that's respect.
Yeah.
But I knew he wouldn't do it. So I threw it up anyways, just because I wanted him to refuse it. And when he refused and gave me the salute, it just, naturally the bow came.
Yeah.
And I came out, sat down, and I could feel myself tearing up. And I thought, I can't tear up in front of the crowd. But you could hear people crying all around. Even the commentators were crying with their, they're all crying loud. I got to get out of here before I start crying myself. So I quickly hopped off and walked out, went backstage.
Did that.
But after that moment, I realized wrestling, it doesn't matter how good your match is or how cool a movie you do. It's those moments.
Yeah.
Right? When people look back, thank you. You mentioned that. When people sit down and meet you or talk to their friends or what's your favorite moment?
Yeah.
What are the moments do you remember? That's for me, that's more important than, doing the whole tour or being on the G1 or it's those moments in wrestling that
they nail you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just remembering moments because I became a New Japan fan in 2016. And I went back to the backlogs to watch everything. I remember things like you having the top guys on your shoulders as you're entering the ring as a part of Bullet Club. So being a part of Bullet Club, what were your thoughts when you saw other brothers such as Tongaloa, Tamatonga, fellow Tongans out there, who have made it up there and now they're with you as your kinship, as your partners.
Mm-hmm.
What were your thoughts then, knowing that brothers like us can go up there in the big stage?
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing because I didn't feel alone anymore. Even though you have a lot of Samoans who are in the business, it felt like I was an outsider because I was Tongan. And I remember when I started, I heard about the Usos and, King Rikishi's sons, the brothers. And they were just starting out at the same time. And then when I heard from the boss, hey, do you know King Haku? His sons are over in Puerto Rico, 2 of them working. And I thought, man, new generation. Now there's me, there's 2 other Tongans. And then we can actually be part of the Samoan dynasty. We have some Tongans too. And that made me really proud. But when they came to Japan, even more proud because now I had a family that I could work with.
Yeah. Because when I saw the Gorillas of Destiny come out and I heard their names and I was like, that's so cool. I was like, all right, man, the kids from King Haku, and I was thinking to myself, man, they're gonna be as crazy as hell, like their dad. They're gonna do all them spots, and they end up freaking doing it, and I'm like,
yeah.
See, also you need to learn that because that's how you're gonna get the crowd.
Yeah.
So. Just hearing about Hikaleo and all those guys and just watching you grow from Bad Luck Fale, and I love how you just keep chasing after that announcer to the Rogue General and coming up with the slogan, and we can swear here it's I don't give a fuck. I don't fucking care. Who gives a fuck? It's just, you come up with all these amazing things, and then establishing the dojo out here in Otahu. How does it feel to have that established from where you are now, from where you were before?
I love it. These days, for me, giving back is more rewarding than being champion of the company or whatever. Just seeing the faces of the kids I've helped, achieve their goals. I feed off that, and especially if they're from New Zealand or South Auckland. But it wasn't easy. We're still struggling now because of COVID.
Yeah.
We were just about to blow up back in early 2020. We had a lot of plans to do tours all over Australia and New Zealand and the South Pacific. But we're slowly getting back into where we were back in 2020. And those plans to do tours are coming back. So waiting on those borders to open up, then we can start showcasing what we have.
Yeah, because I would love to see Fale Dojo boys go up there. And I've seen some of them, like, for instance, Jay White, Aaron Hinari. Those boys are doing well. You got one in the Empire and another one is literally leading the Bullet Club. You know, what were your thoughts about Jay White leading the Bullet Club? Because you never think Auckland boy, coming through the ranks,
Yeah, he's got all the talent. The only thing he needs to work on is actually experience, which he's doing now. So he may be great now. He's gonna be even greater in about 5-10 years. He's so young and he's getting it. He's slowly learning everything else. 5 to 10 years from now, I wouldn't be surprised he'll be at the Roman Reigns or John Cena level of fame. But he's doing great. He's still young, very young. Hinari the same. Hinari's still just coming up now. It takes time. This business is not easy. So, man. Timing is everything also, but I'm still learning. I've only been in it for 12 years now. And I'm still learning a lot. Right? It's not like any other business. This business is tough. You'll lose your hair for it.
Well, you look cool though, because I don't like everyone. Okada has his money, Naito has his pose, but you just have this presence. Because I don't know if you remember, I met you at Armageddon at your store out in Auckland, and I met you, and you looked at me, and I was like, "Fuck, he scares the shit out of me." And then I bought merch, and I left. And then you looked at my mate. You looked at my mate. My mate goes, "Is he okay?" And I'm like, "Yes, nah, he's just nervous." I see the certain bullets going, "Oh fuck."
Oops.
I was like, he must be still in this Fale, come here. I'm like, no.
I thought I was smiling.
Oh my god. No, you were humble, and you always will be humble to me. Speaking of humbleness, what is it that you want to see in the future? When and the future is a really big word, because it may be about yourself, it may be about your dojo, it may be about your family, and it may be something that you want to do something else. What is it that Tox Fale wants to see in the near future?
There's a lot of things in my head, in my mind, in my dreams. And I'm working towards them now, and it's coming into fruition. One of them, of course, is the dojo, growing the dojo, and I want to expand the dojo. So I'm looking at multiple cities in Australia, Tonga, Fiji, Samoa. That's all looking like it's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
Also tours. I want to start doing tours again for New Japan. And incorporating everybody that trains for Fale Dojo is going to be on those shows and doing monthly tours. That's the big dream. It's going to work. Second, we started our docu-series last year with the Young Lions and Fale Dojo, and that's looking like it's going to be a multiple season series. So we're working on that, working to get it on local TV here in New Zealand. So
that'd be cool, yeah.
When that happens, they'll be on every year, hopefully. Also, we're working on short films and movies, getting my acting skills up and trying different things on that. But that's where I am right now. Just things like if you have a dream, if you have goals, you got to try them, because tomorrow is not guaranteed. You can talk about it today and not wake up tomorrow. So if you have dreams, if you have goals, you have to act on them and try and get it done.
Awesome. And just my final question would be, I always like to leave my viewers with something, a thought. So what would be a quote or something that someone said to you that inspired you? Always love leaving my crowd with that.
There's one, a short one that one of the guys I listened to, Les Brown, which goes like, if there is something that you want bad enough to go out and fight for it, to work day and night for it, to give up your peace, your sleep, and your time for it, then with the help of God, you will get it.
Yeah. That's beautiful, man. Thank you. Where can we find you?
At Tox Fale, TOKSFALE, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, or Tox Fale on Facebook.
Nice. And what is there any time for anyone to drop by to the dojo just to have a look?
Yes, we do our general classes at 6 to 7 p.m. and it's a simplified way of training, of wrestling training that we do every day from Monday to Friday. If you want to check that out, see how wrestlers train, come by and do that. Or if you want to just come and chat, we're usually there at 5 to 6 before training.
Okay, sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And that's us for the SHOOTHOUSE Podcast. I hope you enjoyed it.